All right, I'm here with Daps of NRG. Um, and NRG have been quite successful in their European escapades so far. Do you think there's a straightforward explanation to why you guys went so far at Star Series?
I think the simplest answer would be we had more time to recover. When our first match versus Liquid, we had just landed and had, I think, 11 or 10 hours till our match. So we had no time to prepare, no time to sleep pretty much. So I think it took us a little bit to get used to the environment. And then even in the first match we won, it was pretty shaky versus the Chinese team. So I think just a simple answer is we had time to recover in that format.
Speaking of the format, it was quite an extensive one, right, with all the best of threes. Do you think more tournament organizers should adopt such a format that requires so many maps to be played, or should that be like a specialty thing?
I think more matches is always better. And I think the format they had is very good because you play only BO3s and you play one match a day, and it gives you time to fix mistakes as well. So you can see sort of growth over the course of the tournament, and also there's less chance for teams that shouldn't go to playoffs to make it through because it's not best of ones.
So do you think this narrative growth can be applied to the NRG squad? Did you guys come out a better team at the end of the tournament than you went in?
Yeah, I think if the format was the same as sort of like Dallas or even this event we're playing right now, there's a high chance we could have just been out in the first 2 days. So I think it's important for organizers to look at longer formats if it's possible. Even this event, I'd say I don't really like the format because we play a full season just to potentially be out after 2 games. So I don't really like that.
Going back a little bit to the Star Series run, you guys were supposed to be the easy side of the bracket, right? Do you think that it was this underdog status that led to causing those 2 big upsets in the playoff stage?
You mean in terms of our mindset going into it?
Yours and the opposition's as well.
I think there's always a little bit of that. I think Liquid definitely thought they'd win, which is probably why we won so easily on the last 2 maps. So I think Liquid should sort of like not go into matches thinking they're just going to easily beat us. So I think that probably affected them, and I think that we definitely didn't feel any pressure because it was sort of our first playoff as a team. So we definitely had already reached higher expectations than people expected. So yeah, I think it definitely played a factor, but I don't think it's the only reason we did well since our wins were so convincing. So I think it's like 50-50.
Do you think playing a series of bigger tournaments as a squad overseas, it can be beneficial, but it can also harm like team cohesion? Depending on the result you guys get here, do you think this will be a successful tour?
The goal for this event is to get it to groups. I think that's just sort of our main goal as a team right now, since we just had a good result, or our first good result, is to just try to become consistent getting out of groups so we can sort of solidify ourselves as a top 10 team at least. And then once we get to that consistent getting out of groups stage, then that's when we go for like, let's get top 4, let's get to the finals consistently. And it's sort of just a progression, I feel.
It's interesting you put it as a top 10 team, so you don't really believe in the classification of top NA team, top EU team.
I think aiming to be the top NA team is pointless. I'm perfectly fine always being ranked under C9 and Liquid if it means we're constantly making playoffs and having potential to win finals.
So London and Faceit are going to be hosting the major in September. Do you wish for anything to be changed in the way majors are ran?
I definitely don't think the major should be best of 1 Swiss. I'm not going to discredit Quantum Bellator for making legend status, but they definitely are not a top 8 team in the world. So I think best of 1 Swiss is good to a point, but it still causes upsets. Like anyone can win a best of 1 if you're in the top 30 teams. And I've seen like SK lose BO1s to bad teams. You've seen like C9 lost to bad like every top team's had like a bad day, you know. So I think definitely remove best of 1 Swiss format. Ideally, they do the star ladder format. Best of 3 Swiss, in my opinion, is the best format.
But do you think there is actually a type of format that can determine a set of 8 teams that can have a longevity in terms of, yep, those guys are still going to be their status, their standing is still going to be indicative of their status from 6 months ago?
I haven't thought about it too much. I definitely think there's too long of a break between each major for, like, because like so many things can happen between, I think it's like 5 or 6 months between each major, or 4 or 5 months. So I think I personally don't know what the solution is, but I think there definitely needs to be some changes or tweaks by Valve, and I think they will eventually make those tweaks.
So would you prefer if we went back to the 2014-2015 style of 3 majors a year?
Yeah, if it's done correctly. I'd even be fine with just one huge tournament that has just it's done correctly, and it's like a 2-week event, and it's done sort of like I said, best of 3 Swiss format. I think they're moving in the right direction by sort of expanding the major, so where the major qualifier is just the major now. I think that's fine, but the format doesn't make sense. I feel, it just feels rushed to me, the majors.
Okay, so my last question would concern ImAPet, who, well, not so recently, but recently joined you guys as a coach. How's been working with him?
I got ImAPet because most coaches I've had sort of fail to hold people accountable, and I think that's something that I think the reason for that is coaches generally don't want to potentially lose their job, since a lot of coaches come in not from like a respected point of view, if that makes sense. So I brought ImAPet in because I know he'd hold people accountable. He has experience working with European players, which I think is really important. And I know he's just a hard worker from talking to him a lot and just from what I've heard. So I think just we'll take it more seriously with him. And then that was the main reason we got him. And that's why I like working with him.
So is that what sets him aside from just being a glorified analyst? Is that he's also like sort of like a human resources guy on the team?
Yeah. I mean, he even has things he has to work on. Because he's young. He's 21. Like, most coaches aren't 21 years old or like younger than some of the players on the team, you know. So he's still learning and working on areas sort of with like outside of game coaching. But I think he's definitely good at talking to players and helping them out, and he's getting better every day as well. So
thanks very much.